This edition of MacVoices is supported by Care.com, the easy and reliable way to find and manage care for everyone in the family. Save 30% on a Care.com premium membership using the link care.com/MacVoices. Welcome to the MacJury on MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, as we record this, we're just a very short time after the conclusion of Apple's September event, and we have a great panel to talk about what we saw, what we heard, what we think is important, and what we think is not important, if there is anything that's not important. So first, let's find out who's here, and then we will take off. First up, and I'm going from left to right on my screen because that way I can keep it straight, Mr. Don McAllister. Don, welcome. It's good to have you.
Hi, Chuck. Yeah, it's good to be back. Yeah, it's always a little bit, I don't know, I feel a little bit fried after these keynotes because it's sort of late in the evening here now, whereas you're all nice and fresh and ready to go. But it takes a little while to process all the information. But no, it's good to be here. I'll be looking forward to chatting with you about what we discovered.
You make a good point, Don. Usually we have a little more perspective here, but this time I thought, there's been so much hype over this, and of course we have the leak issue that we may or may not get to, and I figured this is, it's important to get this stuff out. Also definitely. Joining us, Mr. Ken Ray. Ken, it's a pleasure as always.
Chuck, thank you very much for having me.
Hey, it's always good to have you. It's now I'm seeing you in Skype. I saw you a couple of weeks ago in Vegas, so I guess it was only a couple of weeks ago. Seems like just a couple of weeks ago.
It feels like both a couple of weeks ago and about a year.
Yeah. That seems to be the story of our lives, Ken.
That's definitely how the Vegas show goes too. Yeah.
But that's a whole nother podcast. So I assume that you both watched the keynote as I did, and I'm anxious to know what you think. And Ken, you suggested when we started that we might want to talk a little bit about the presentation overall itself, the Steve Jobs Theater location and all that. And while I think that's a very valid place to start, since Tim did give us a decent amount of time with that. Good, bad? Did you feel like this was appropriate because it was the first time in the Steve Jobs Theater?
The theater looks amazing. The presentation went off very well, I thought. I was very excited to see Angela Ahrendts on stage for the first time, at least for the first time, at an Apple event. That was really cool. I thought it was kind of interesting that I think they said they were going to give an update on retail, and they really didn't give an update on retail. She gave more of a, I don't want to go so far as to say an inspirational talk, but a talk on what Apple retail, means to the company and means to her. Calling it, I believe, Apple's biggest product or Apple's best product. I can't remember exactly what the term was. We did get two kind of huge updates there that they're going to be opening the Chicago store next month, their flagship store in Chicago, and they're not going to reopen the Fifth Avenue store until late next year, she said, that's an amazing amount of time for that store to be. I mean, it's not closed because you just go to the, where the FAO Schwartz used to be, right behind that store, but it was surprising to hear that it's going to be about that long. I need for us to stop lionizing Steve Jobs soon. And I don't mean to sound awful about that because the guy was amazing. The guy was a genius. I understand that for people who worked with him, it's a very difficult thing to work without him. That just feeds into the whole narrative of Apple's lost without Steve Jobs now. And also I'm just personally starting to get uncomfortable with the grief around it because it's been a while. And that's not to be hard-hearted about it. It's more, it's starting to make me a little bit uncomfortable when it happens. I feel like I'm dipping into someone else's pain at this point. And that may sound crazy, but that's how the event started. And so that's where I started with it. And if I'm completely wrong about that, I feel certain I will get emails, and I'm fine with that. It's just sort of like now maybe it's because this is the Steve Jobs. I mean, there were a lot of reasons to do that. This is the Steve Jobs Theater. This is the 10th anniversary. Well, the 10th anniversary in several months of the first iPhone. I hope the next time we go to that theater, we just go straight into here's what we're going to say.
Yeah. Don?
I think it was appropriate because I think it was the whole thing was because it was the Steve Jobs Theatre, and it was the first time that we'd had, other than the drone footage that we've seen of Apple Park, and he had such a, he actually did kick that off. It was his baby to get that rolling, and so I think it because they haven't done it for a while. So it did seem a bit strange that they brought it back now, but I understood why they did it. And I think they handled it okay. I mean, it was very emotional for Tim Cook at the beginning as well. So I didn't feel that uncomfortable, but I don't think it'll happen again. I think it was a one-off. It's the opening of the Steve Jobs Theatre, homage to the guy, and then, let's move on and show you the product. So I was okay with that.
I will say it was amazing to hear that, what did he say, that they've been working on Apple Park for a decade or for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is, certainly longer than any of us know about it.
Yeah, I mean, that the theatre itself blew me away because it was, and when you think that's just a tiny part of the Apple Park campus, and it was so much detail had gone into it. It seemed a very intimate setting as well. And I was quite surprised how small the stage appeared because it was, this huge seating area sort of funneling into this very small stage. So it did have a very sort of intimate quality to it, which I think is better for the presenters because they can feel more, relaxed in a smaller sort of environment. So no, I thought it was fantastic venue. I'm really looking forward to someday going there and checking it out for myself, hopefully.
Yeah, and I felt, I see your point, Ken, and I think I know exactly what you mean. I felt like it was appropriate because it's a Steve Jobs Theater, because it was the 10th anniversary. I mean, the fact that those two were here together made perfect sense. I mean, how many times this week have you been seeing videos of Steve introducing the original iPhone? So in some ways, it would have seemed strange not to bring that up and not to address that. And especially as we'll talk about a little bit later, when we have an iPhone 10 being announced. So,
right. Yeah. Well, no, don't misunderstand. I'm not against it. I'm just, it made me a little... It made me a tiny bit uncomfortable at the very beginning. But then, they did bring it back around at the end with the Gretzky quote that Jobs used when they first introduced the original iPhone. And that's one of my favorite quotes. And so to tie it up that way was good. So I don't mean to make it sound like I'm bagging on the presentation for that. I'm just not sure.
I did feel I felt a bit uncomfortable with the Angela part of the presentation, to be honest, because I just wasn't expecting that. Although it was great to see her first time on stage and she had a story to tell, it just seemed a little bit strange because I think the past few keynotes, they've had so much information to give out that it felt as though every minute was sort of precious and they had so much information to do with the products. And then for her, I don't know how long she actually spent at the beginning, but it must have been a good 5 or 6 minutes. And it was a very sort of soft sell about retail, and it was a little bit airy-fairy about what they were doing. That just didn't sit quite right with me, although they had a good story to tell. But that just seemed a little bit weird, following on from the Steve presentation.
I don't know. They did make a good... If you don't happen to be fortunate enough to live in one of the cities that has one of their great big stores, it's an even better story. The problem is you won't necessarily feel it.
Sure.
I haven't lived... for the past 8 or 9 years, I haven't lived in a city that had one of those amazing stores. So, on the occasion that I walk into one of the stores in New York, say, I'm absolutely blown away by everything I see. But generally speaking, it's a much smaller affair. So, you're right. It is kind of odd to spend those 5 or 6 minutes sort of pitching something that most people aren't going to see. But again, she really did sell hard, the idea that it's a community, the idea that it's a place where people go. She even made a point of saying we don't call our stores anymore, and the whole plaza idea, all that stuff was pretty interesting. Honestly, I was just glad to finally see her on stage. We've known that she was going to be the head of Apple Retail for 3 years now, I think is how long we've known she was going to be the head of Apple Retail, right? She's actually been head of Apple Retail for 2. And so to finally see her on stage, talking about that and becoming a face. Other thing, and I know we're getting caught in the minutia and everybody really wants to talk about the watch and the phone. Everybody came up on a first name basis today. I want to start you with an update on retail, and here's Angela. And now we're going to talk about the phone, and here's Phil. Everybody was just. Did they say Craig Federighi? I think they just said Craig. So. Everybody is somebody that we know at this point. And I don't know if that's because you're dealing with the tech press, or if that's because they're trying to present we're all doing something here as opposed to we're handing something down to you. It was a subtle thing, but it was interesting. We had Eddie, we had Phil. We didn't have vice president of anything up there, and we didn't even have last names. We just had a bunch of people showing us stuff.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Care.com, the easy and reliable way to find and manage care for everyone in your family. Taking care of the members of your family is priority one. It's one of the most important jobs you'll ever have, and it can be one of the most challenging too, because the level of care can vary so much from help with meals, errands, and housekeeping, the whole way up to transportation and personal care. Even something as simple as companionship can be difficult when there's so many other priorities. And it can be expensive. The average family caregiver spends about $7,000 per year in out-of-pocket expenses. If you opt for facility care, that gets even more expensive. That's why you want to keep your loved ones at home where they want to be. That decision alone can save you as much as 50%. But those are the economics. The bigger challenges are finding caregivers who match in personality and skills for your needs. That is the most critical and the most difficult part. Care.com can help you with all that. They help you find the personalized care you need so your loved ones can stay in the comfort of their own home, yet still get the help they need. They make it easy to adjust the level of care as your needs change. I hope you'll visit Care.com right now and find out about all their resources that can make your life easier at this most challenging time. And if you use the link care.com/MacVoices, you can save 30% on a Care.com premium membership. Check it out today, even if you don't have the need right now, and be prepared for tomorrow. That's care.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Care.com for their support of MacVoices. Okay, so we had one member show up just a little bit late, but she's way too important not to include her, Ms. Tonya Engst. Tonya, welcome. It's good to have you.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Yeah. So we were just getting started talking about the opening part of the session with the Steve Jobs Theater, with Angela on stage, and wanted to see if you had any thoughts before we move on to the Apple Watch.
Well, I thought it was a very nice introduction to, our first keynote in the new theater, and, nice of them to kind of loop in Steve Jobs and to talk about how, a few years had passed and we can sort of reflect on the Steve Jobs legacy in a different way. So I thought that was very nice and very appropriate. The main thing that really caught my eye about the Steve Jobs Theater, and you have to watch one of these presentations to see it, is that the screen that they were presenting on must have been, 30 feet tall or something. So you had the people on stage looking completely dwarfed by the products and the scenery that was showing above, which did create some amusing visuals a few times. So I thought that was interesting to see. You'll always be able to tell, looking back later, which presentations took place in the Steve Jobs Theater and which didn't, just because from the size of the screen.
That's a great point. I forget which particular visual, but there was one that really struck me with just that is one really big screen. And obviously, to be showing off some of the 4K stuff, they have state-of-the-art projectors and all. So, yeah, nice place to visit. So, guys, let's take it in the order of the keynote, and that means that the Apple Watch is up first. I'm kind of excited about some of this. I also have a few trepidations. But Don, how about if we start with you this time? What did you think was the high point, low point? What do you plan to do?
Well, I'm quite excited by some of the health stuff. I think they're making fantastic strides in making the watch pretty much a no-brainer for a lot of people, who want to monitor their health and monitor quite serious issues with their health as well. So I think they're really doing a lot of work in that respect. The cellular thing is good. I didn't expect it so soon, to be honest. I think we might have waited a little bit longer for the next series of watch, but they seem to be pushing it very aggressively now. And of course, the thing is, as the new watch comes out, all the other versions of the watch gets pushed down the price change, so it becomes more affordable for people. So I think they're doing really, really good work with the watch. Tons of technology built into there to make it virtually the same thickness as the existing Series 2 watch, and have all that extra functionality is quite impressive. And I was impressed with his name escapes me now. Is that terrible? The presenter of the watch. What's his name?
Jeff
I thought
Williams.
Yeah, Jeff, he's been on quite a few times now, and I know he's been touted as possibly the next CEO in succession. And he seems to be really loosening up now and seems to be a lot more relaxed on stage. He even went sort of rogue at one point, which I thought was quite nice to see, and went off script, which was good. So all in all, I was very impressed with the watch. I don't know if I'll go down the cellular route because it would mean me changing carrier here in the UK, but I don't know. Mine's not made up on that as of yet.
Tonya? Apple Watch. I know you are probably the fittest of the group here, with apologies to Don and Ken and me, because you are constantly out running. So did what you saw tempt you into an Apple Watch Series 3?
Oh, yeah, very much so. I am an avid cyclist and avid runner. And in particular, I've been doing a lot of trail running lately. And a challenge for me, especially given my fairly small body size, is getting all the stuff on me that I want to take, like on a long trail run. And I was just commenting last night, I'm doing a trail relay this weekend where I'll be running 10 miles on a trail. And my team members are counting on me to run quickly so I can hand off the baton to the next runner, who will go another 6 or 7 miles or whatever. And I was commenting that given my current gear, I was going to have to choose between carrying my iPhone and water. And that's a trade-off that I could solve by buying a lot more, stuff to carry on me. But probably the water's going to win this time. But it would be nice to have a cellular-equipped watch so that I would just always have, mapping, emergency calling, et cetera, available without having to consider how I'm going to carry that iPhone on my body during athletic events. So that's a big plus for me. Really looking forward to that and hoping that I haven't researched yet. Maybe someone else here has researched what the data plan or the phone, if there'll be an additional cost for that, or if it can just piggyback on your iPhone's plan, which would be my hope, cross fingers. I was also really interested to hear that they're going to have some more proactive heart monitoring features where you can get a notification if your heart rate seems to be unusually high for no reason. I know that can help to ID some really important health problems. And I also I think they said it was going to be a little later on that there would be a program you could sign up for to have your heart rhythm more fully tracked. And that sounds really interesting. I'll probably sign up for that just out of curiosity.
Tonya, you bring up a really interesting point. I would not have thought of this from a competition standpoint, the fact that it combines so many more things. I was thinking more just general workouts and day-to-day activities or day-to-day running and cycling and all. But from a competition standpoint, you feel that would be a notable advantage?
Oh, I wasn't thinking of the heart rate stuff from a competition standpoint. I just thought it was interesting from a health standpoint. If I'm really competing, I don't put extra stuff on my body. But for a 10-mile trail run, you kind of have to, if you're going out in the middle of nowhere, like you need water if it's not supported. So right. Most serious athletes still don't really use the Apple Watch, although it is getting much more, it's adding features. It's getting a lot better.
Ken, are you going to be investing?
Probably not yet, but I got more turned on by the cellular stuff than I had been before. I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with my eyes. So generally speaking, I use my watch as just a notification center or to track workouts or things like that. But really, I get a message and I look and see the text is big enough to see who it is that's messaging me. That lets me know whether or not I need to reach into my pocket and get out my phone, because I can read the text on my phone. I can't read the text on my watch for the most part, which is sort of a terrible thing to admit, but there it is. I think it was Ming-Chi Kuo who said earlier this year that it's going to have cellular, but it's not going to have the ability to make phone calls, which seemed kind of silly to me. If you were going to go that far, why not go the last 10 feet? And they went ahead and did that, which is great. From an emergency standpoint, I could see it. I'm nowhere near the runner that Tonya is, but earlier this year I did a Couch to 5K app, and the biggest pain was, okay, where am I going to keep my phone? And pretty much I would just end up carrying it for the whole time, which, I was only one spill away from, losing my phone. So not having to do that, which I know I didn't have to do that, except I do the streaming music thing to find out it's going to support Apple Music, was kind of cool too. So I think if I were looking at an Apple Watch for the first time, going for the one with cellular would be no question. That said, I right now have an Apple Watch, and so I don't need to upgrade yet. There's going to come a day when this watch will no longer, because I've got the first one that everybody got on the 24th of April. There's going to come a day, maybe it'll be Watch OS 5, maybe it'll be Watch OS 6, but one day this watch is not going to be able to support the next thing. And so I'll be glad to have all of that stuff then, but it's not enough for me because I'm not the same kind of user that Tonya is. It's not enough for me, I don't think, to actually to trade yet. I don't think it is. However, the next time if something happens to my watch and it's like, oh, it's going to be 100 whatever to, fix this part. Yeah. Next time I upgrade, I'll be happy to get the cellular one, I think.
Yeah, I think the music was very interesting though. The 40 million songs on your wrist what used to be 1,000 songs in your pocket, and now that's quite a big difference in scale. And I think I did see on Twitter someone said that it's going to be $10 a month extra on top of the AT&T plan for the cellular element. So yeah, well, that's confirmed. That's just, I'm not sure if that's confirmed, but I just did see someone on Twitter had done some research on that. But yeah, which is a bit of a pain.
That's been one of my other. Forgive me, $10. $10 is not bad. I never figured they would come in that low. If they come in at $10, I can do it. If it comes in higher than that, if it's basically the same as signing another, I guess is it $10 and I can add it or drop it whenever I want to? That would be great. And if it's $10, not $30, that would be fantastic too. But I'll wait until I see something in quote print end quote. Sure. I guess.
Yeah, $10 seems like a great price point. I was worried that it would be more than that and just wouldn't really be able to make the case for it.
See, I'm really intrigued by you guys because I dropped my having my iPad on a cellular plan because for $10 they didn't give you any extra data or anything. It just literally they were on the same account. Now, I want to see this because right before the show, I Googled AT&T Apple Series 3 plans, and I couldn't find anything. But it's always bothered me a lot that, okay, I don't get anything. Really, all you're doing is you're providing me service to my iPad for $10 a month.
And with the iPad, if you already have an iPhone, you could just tether the iPad to the iPhone. So It's sort of...
And that's what it's going to be interesting to see if we have that option here as well, whether there's a tethering option or not. They didn't say anything.
Right.
I haven't seen anything.
But the whole point of the cellular enabled watch is that you can take it away from your iPhone.
And it breaks the tether.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're carrying around an iPad anyway, you're probably in a position where carrying an iPhone isn't too much of an imposition.
Yeah, I guess just $120. I mean, if you told me that, okay, we're going to charge you a connection fee and it's just going to piggyback on your regular cell phone plan, I wouldn't have a problem with it. You could probably charge me a hefty connection fee, and as long as it's a one-time fee, I could live with it. But that's $120 a year that I'm having to shell out for this. Now, if you have Tonya's situation, or even Ken's, where you have areas where you want to make the calls, and really having the phone would be a disadvantage, then it's a deal. But not quite so sure.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but I felt like for the price differential, if I were buying one, and I haven't decided yet, but if I do, I'm definitely going to go for the cellular and just not turn it on if I don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I've already thought about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's. Anybody surprised that the Series 1 is still in play and not the Series 2 as the bottom of the line? Apparently not.
No, not really, because the Watch OS itself does improve the original Series 1 significantly. So it's still a perfectly usable phone watch. So no, it's a great entry level watch for people who just they don't want to spend $250 or whatever for one of the newer ones. Just start at the base and see if they like it.
Yeah, and I don't mean to imply there's anything wrong with the ones. I mean they're great. I'm surprised that they just didn't kind of shift everything a generation up, but maybe there are pricing or good reasons for doing that.
Well, again, I think it's to keep the spread of prices, isn't it? They want to try and make the spread of prices as broad as possible. So you've got entry-level ones and the new ones, and a nice spread in between, so people can choose at their particular price band.
Yeah. One thing before we move on, I wanted to make sure that we touched on that. Tim popped up a graphic that said now the Apple Watch is the most popular watch in the world. Not the most popular smartwatch or electronic watch or anything, but the most popular watch. And I thought that's kind of impressive. I don't know where that's coming from, but that's impressive if you look at it and think, okay, how old is this? And you have all those mechanical watch people out there that love their watches, and yet Apple Watch is number one. Wow.
A lot of those people who love their mechanical watches also bought an Apple Watch, though. I mean, I know Dave Hamilton has one, right?
Yep.
And he's huge into his analog watches. I mean, it's an interesting thing. I mean, for a couple of reasons. I mean, they do have the marketing might, they do have the cool factor, but Apple also spent a number of years killing the watch. I don't think they did it intentionally so that they could be the number one watch seller. But I mean, there are many people, myself included, I wore a watch until I had my iPhone. And then eventually I stopped because it's so easy just to pull out your iPhone and there it is. And thankfully, large numbers so I can read it. And then, so they decimated the market, and now they come back in and they sell something in that market, and then they say, hey, and we're number one in that, and all it took was, killing everybody else before we got into it.
Interesting point that's what happened to a couple generations of people here, that they gave up their watches for phones. Now they're trying to get them to give up their phones for watches, almost.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Wow. Okay, so the next thing that came up, of course, was the Apple TV, Apple TV 4K. And I feel like it almost had to be. And so the only thing that came out of this that I was a little surprised at was the price point. And I saw a lot of Twitter comments on that the quote-unquote competition, which I'm not sure I agree with that term, is sub $100. Don, overpriced or about right?
It is expensive when you compare it to the competition, but it's an Apple device. The biggest surprise for me wasn't so much the price of the actual unit, but it was the price of the content. And the fact that you don't really pay a premium for the 4K movies, and they're going to upgrade movies that you've already purchased to 4K. That came as a huge shock, because I know on some of the other services it can be $20 or $30 to buy a 4K movie. It's quite an expensive proposition. So that was the biggest surprise for me. I mean the 4K thing is well overdue. In my mind, they should really, when they brought out the new Apple TV, the last generation, that really should have been a 4K device at the time. But I just suppose that the stars weren't aligned for them to actually do that. So now we've all got to go out and buy a 4K version if we want the latest model.
Ken, 4K?
I don't have a 4K TV, so I'm kind of in the same place I am with the watch. If I get a 4K TV, then sure, that'll be great. In the meantime, I'm fine with my 4th gen Apple TV. I did think, well, they need to make the case for why Apple TV is better than a Roku, because Roku has so many more channel options. I don't know whether it's I've got a Roku I've got a television with the Roku operating system on it. So I don't have a Roku, but I've got I think the Roku viewing experience basically. I have a family member who does have a Roku. For the way I tend to use either one, it's probably interchangeable, but I do like the fact that I can say to Siri, hey, find me this or look for that or whatever. And it will actually do it'll search all of the different sources that I have on the TV. But I don't know that Apple has made a clear enough case for that. And maybe they don't care. Maybe they think it's still too early in the connected TV game. I'm not sure. Because, on paper, there's no reason I wouldn't get a Roku. On paper, there's no reason I wouldn't get the Roku stick compared to the Apple TV. I mean, if I weren't steeped in the Apple ecosystem, if I was just out looking for my first streaming device, I can't imagine why I would spend the money on Apple. But having used that and having used the Roku a tiny bit, I mean, I can see that reason, but I don't know that they've made the case to the general public why you would want that over any of the other streaming devices out there, of which there are many.
I guess Don's points is a really good one. If you're able to buy the 4K content cheaper and have everything upgraded, I wonder how much that becomes worth it to buy the Apple TV, because in the long term, the Apple TV, if you buy a lot of that 4K content, the Apple TV may end up being a cheaper thing. So I'm sure there'll be somebody.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's a big ecosystem play though, isn't there? Because you can't really just consider it as a unit for playing TV and movies, because you've got your own movies from your iPhone, you've got your Apple Music, you've got your Photos album that appears, on your Apple TV. So it really does act as a central media hub if you are into the Apple ecosystem, and that really does add a lot of value for people as well. And just the ease of using AirPlay to it, it just makes it a no-brainer.
Yeah,
I think too, correct me if I'm wrong, the upgrade thing is basically for people who already have an Apple TV,
Yes.
who Apple wants to get to upgrade. So basically, if you've been buying HD as opposed to SD, then all of your HD things are what's going to convert. So all your SD things aren't. And certainly if you're coming in from outside into an Apple TV, nothing's going to convert for you to 4K. Until you actually start buying things in HD or 4K. So that'll be a neat thing. Again, that'll be great for me when I eventually get 4K. But, I'll wait until maybe I'll be out running with my watch and my Apple TV, and I'll drop them both. And then I'll need to go buy new ones.
We'll try to trip you, Ken.
I'm still enjoying my third generation Apple TV, and the third generation Apple TV was purchased to replace the situation of basically not having TV. My family was literally watching TV on an iPad because we just didn't have anything. So I think we're still really quite happy with our current system, even though it's not a 4K system, and it probably will be a few more years before we would want to outlay for a new TV. But I think Apple needed to put the 4K into the Apple TV to just maintain their position as, sort of providing a little bit more of a premium situation, and to move forward with all the other things they're doing that support 4K video right now. So it makes sense for them to offer. And if I was buying a new Apple TV because mine broke, well, I don't know, I'd have to look at the price point, but it seems like a forward-facing thing to do, to have it, because sooner or later you'll get a new TV, and then you'll have the new content. And I think a lot of also what you're paying for also with the Apple TV is having, as Don was saying, the integrated experience, with your iCloud account and all that, having your AirPods actually, automatically pair with your Apple TV if they're already paired with your iPhone, and just some of that stuff. Apple could do a whole lot more work with, I think, the TV OS interface, and with having your photos and music, come in a little bit more quickly and sort of be more amazing. But I hope that they'll keep on working on that, and all those extra $100 we give them, for the Apple TV, hopefully they can invest it into some of that.
I will say really quickly, there was a guy at that Las Vegas show that you were talking about earlier, Chuck. There we are at a Star Trek convention, and a macOS Ken listener came up to me, and we talked for about 20 minutes about why he thought Apple was losing in the connected TV space. But when he was telling me the stories of how much money he spent on various state-of-the-art televisions, I can see why he would think so. So, there are a number of people who are going to be incredibly happy about what Apple announced today, even though they would also say Apple finally caught up with where they are. But I know there are a lot of people who are probably a lot more excited than the four of us here, because they, live and die by the latest AV. And, I know that at least that one guy, and I wish I could remember his name because I would name check him right here, but he knows who he is. And a lot of people are going to be really happy with that.
There was a lot of gnashing of teeth and wailing, the fact that they haven't upgraded the Apple remote for the TV. It looks as though it's the same remote with the Apple TV, and people seem very, very upset about that on Twitter. But I'm okay with the, people just don't seem to be able to hold it the right way round and get confused. But it seems to work perfectly fine for me. And with iOS 11 now, there's a built-in Apple remote for your Apple TV, which works brilliantly. So if people don't like the old Apple remote, they can always use their iPhone to control the device.
See, I thought I had heard someplace online that they did update it, but it was one of the things that didn't make the sage. Yeah,
I was just checking. I think Josh Centers, who covers Apple TV for us, was commenting in a chat that we have in internally here that he saw something about a new Siri remote after Apple's announcement. So just quite recently.
Because I know they did show one on screen and it looked the same, but and it wasn't mentioned, so it was presumed that they hadn't upgraded. But it would be interesting if they have.
And especially as a third party, excuse me, as a non-bundled product. That would be really interesting. If it makes perfect sense to bundle what you've already got since it works so well, and that's what they showed the game demo on. I think was just a standard Apple TV remote. But if they brought out something more advanced, that if you really wanted it, a few more bucks and you can get it, but they're not going to eat into their profit margin on the regular Apple TV.
Okay, I'm quoting from a 9to5Mac article that Josh was sharing with us, and apparently the new Siri remote has a new menu button that is part of the touch surface. I'm not even sure what that means, but there's some adjustment to the remote.
Okay. Well, we'll see when that comes out. That should be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. I have gotten more accustomed to the Siri remote, but certainly once or twice a week, I'm still holding it the wrong way and pushing the wrong side of it, or it doesn't work because I'm not actually pushing anything. So hopefully Apple will keep on working on that.
Yeah. I just find you have to hold it very gingerly when you pick it up, and if you pick it up without touching anything, you're normally good to go. It's when you sort of just grab for it, you can press buttons and things on it. But
yeah. I can't help. There's one thing that really bugged me during this particular keynote, and that is I had my Twitter stream open, and it seems to be it's become a contest about who can make the snarkiest, cutest comments, as opposed to genuinely reacting. And I don't. You can criticize or endorse or love or hate, but this snark and everything, it gets old, folks. It gets old. And I'm talking to some friends, and I'm also talking to some not friends, people I don't know. But I mean, really, this is all you have to do?
I can't remember if it was because it was in an article, but I can't remember if it was Josh Gruber or Renee Ritchie, who said there's a certain group of people online now who seem to confuse cynicism for intelligence, which is both cynical and intelligent to say. But I mean, yeah, there was a certain amount of snark that it felt like people were loading up before it even began. Like they were going to be snarky about what they were going to be snarky about. Yes. I like to take time and really craft my snark, Chuck. But I think you know that about me.
and your snark is well crafted, Ken. But some of these people, first of all, it's not well crafted, and second, I don't believe that it's just seat of the pants snark either. I think you're right. I think they were prepared for this, and they pulled them out of whatever their little snark bag was.
Do you want to go way off topic for a second?
Sure.
I kind of wanted to get offline earlier this week, just pitch it all over the side of a wall and go walk off into the woods or something. Because I don't know if you heard, the Orville is the worst show ever, unless you liked it, in which case it's the best show ever. And I think people are grabbing their pitchforks to go after each other on it. And then we get to really important things like this new iPhone. And then we might eventually get to politics or something like that. I mean, the fighting and the snarking. And it's great to be here with you guys where we haven't started fighting yet.
Yeah. Yes. Let's see, how far into the show are we?
You haven't got to the iPhone yet.
As they say, there's such a fine line between clever and stupid.
There are about 5 T-shirts
America.
There are about 5 T-shirts that have just come out of this show right here. I like that, Tonya. I really like that one. That's good. All right, so now we move on to the iPhone, and I guess we'll start with the iPhone 8. And see if I don't know if it makes sense to discuss that in the 10 altogether or separately. But and Tonya, I'll let you lead off this time. What's your reaction to the iPhone 8?
Well, it seems like a pretty nice new iPhone. The wireless charging is totally great. Yes, finally, it's nice to see Apple kind of. It seemed like Apple is getting behind this Qi wireless charging technology, and really going to support this becoming a big standard. And it seems like this is the kind of thing we've been seeing in movies about what the future will be like for a very long time, and it seemed much more practical than flying cars. Like, it seems like, yeah, we could do this, right? And so having it finally appearing in mainstream products from Apple, and hearing that Apple is really going to get behind it, seems encouraging. Fewer cables. I mean, it's a little bit appropriate for Apple, especially, Steve Jobs in particular was always the man who, if he could get rid of a cable, he would, right? So maybe this is an initiative that's been going on for a real long time at Apple, and it's just been harder than it would seem to get going. But, yeah, thumbs up.
Okay, so that's the one that the feature that punched your button. Don, did the camera improvements and the lighting thing?
Yeah, I mean, they're always irritating. No, they're always iterating on the camera, and some really nice features. The processor's is really beefed up, so it can do all this computational stuff with the imagery. You've got these new lighting controls in the larger one anyway, with the dual camera, so you can do the depth mode. All great stuff. I mean, in previous years it would have been an S release if they have kept the same case, but now I suppose with the glass and the wireless charging, it's considered a big enough change that they didn't want to call it an S. They bumped it up to the full iPhone 8. But they look pretty solid releases, and I think most years we probably would have been very happy with what they did, and the iPhone 10 is one extra thing, which, although we knew about a lot of it beforehand, that did come as a nice surprise.
May I ask, when you say most years we would have been happy, are you saying that you're not, or am I misunderstanding?
No, I just think they just follow the usual pattern of what they would have included in an S release, which is incremental increases in performance and functionality in the phone that we had last year. So I don't think it was anything out of the ordinary. Whereas the 10, the 10 is quite a leap ahead, and that's where all the excitement is. But
they created a little bit of a dilemma in the Engst household, because Adam and I both, we both work on Tidbits and feel that we should have the latest iPhone, but there's not really budget for 2 new iPhones every year. Plus, it's great to have the second oldest iPhone in use so we can easily compare the features. So we take turns getting the new phone every year. It's actually my turn this year, but I kind of deferred to Adam because our son gets the next oldest phone down, and I don't want to hand him down my phone because my phone is a little wonky right now with the battery and the screen, and I want him to have a really solid phone because he's a college freshman. So I was like, Adam, you get the new phone, I'll take your 7 and be happy enough with it. But now it's like, well, he's going to get the 10, which is super cool, probably. But then there's the whole 8. So it's like I'll be, like more extra models behind. So it creates, there's like a lot of energy on the front of the iPhone line right now. And it's hard. Like, how can you get the 8 knowing that the 10 has Face ID? Face ID, right? Like, don't you want to try the Face ID? And so it's great that Apple has the features. But personally, there's going to be a very large discussion in the Engst household about who gets what phone.
I think we should add to that discussion right now. I think everybody out here should email Adam and tell him that Tonya needs to get the phone.
I was kind of advocating for 2 new phones.
Okay, well that's fine. So that can be your second choice. But and Adam, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is with the 8 is a lot of what Apple presented that was great about the new iPhone 8 is new camera stuff. And the way my brain works, first there's like the journalist brain that's like, okay, new features, new video, new, what's all the specs, let's get all this right. And it's very cool for professional photographers or deeply involved hobbyists that once again, the cameras are better. They're always better. Every single time they're better. And what this means for me personally is my snapshots. My little snapshots might look better, but I'm but so I think that you have to appreciate with these phones that Apple is creating devices that span the entire gamut of photography people. You've got people who, are happy if they're not very well composed snapshots come out a little better. That's me. And then you've got people who will really, spend a lot of time with the new portrait features and whatnot, and get very excited about the fact that it's 12 megapixels and all this stuff, and use those features. And it's sort of all in one camera. They don't really have, a camera light for people who, could pay $100 less and get a lesser camera. So,
Ken, how about the camera part? That seems to have become almost a driver for new phones. Because at some point, the new chip, fantastic. Definitely more power to do more stuff and more sophisticated things. But it seems like the camera is the thing that everybody focuses on when. Sorry for the pun. It's what everyone focuses on when they're making the buying or upgrading decision. And now they have an additional decision to make: buy upgrade, or upgrade to the 10.
I'll be honest, I was a little surprised that there wasn't something better about the camera in the iPhone 10. It's pretty much the same camera that you're going to get in the iPhone 8 Plus, right? That was a bit surprising, because I would think that you would be looking for something more to get people to spend the $1,000 on the iPhone 10.
I think there was dual the stabilization was in both lenses on the 10. I think it's only on the. Yeah, I think that's and I think it was another 2 bullet points, but they were very, very minor changes.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Not to steal the word that you just used, Chuck, but maybe that's because it's an easy thing to focus on, right? You can show somebody how you can take a picture and your picture can look better. You can't really show somebody faster processor. And that was always a failing that I used to joke about with like some of the original Android phone advertisements. They would show lightning, because that was gonna tell you how your phone was. They'd say it was really faster, and then there'd be lightning, but it wasn't even a picture of lightning or video of lightning. It was just like some weird like visual thing that that tried to get people to sort of see that. The pictures are an easy thing to see. You can't even say to people, well, stereo sounds so much better on the phone, because you can say that. But you can't show them on their speaker on their television how much better that is, or their speaker on their computer how much better that sounds. So yeah, I think it's just an easy thing to look at, put simply. I'm not. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was about to ask you what are your plans?
I think I'm probably going to get an 8 Plus. Because I don't feel like there was enough there to make me want to spend, because it won't be $1,000. It won't be the $999. I'll want the bigger storage as well on that one. Because that's the thing. It's sort of like, okay, well, if I'm going to go that big, then I'm going to go all the way. I've been walking around now for 2 years, 3 years with an iPhone 6 with a 64 gigabyte hard drive, or not hard drive, 64 gigs of memory. So I'll probably just get the 64 on this one as well, on the next one that I get. But if I went that big, then I'd want to go all the way and test it all. And I don't know, for me personally, maybe I've gotten to the point that I always thought that we would get to at some point of like, this does plenty for me right now, and next time I need to upgrade, then I'll go ahead and do that. I'm excited about the augmented reality stuff that's going to be available to me in the iPhone 8. I'm excited about all the upgrades basically that I've missed walking around with an iPhone 6. So I'm jumping ahead 3 phones when I do this. I don't need to go ahead and jump ahead 4, I don't think. Especially because the other thing is I have been planning on getting a new phone in September of 2017, not November of 2017, because the weight's not a big deal. The weight is not nearly as bad as some people had said it might be, but the weight might be a thing that keeps some people. They might look at it and go, the extra money, and I'd have to wait that long. And again, if you walk into an Apple store and they have one there where you can see how good the OLED display is, maybe then. But the thing is, a lot of people are going to place their order this Thursday night, Friday morning, based on what they saw this weekend and what they see online. They're going to do that without going into a store and actually looking at that screen. Certainly without looking at that screen versus another one, if Apple even has them on display yet, which I don't know if they do, and I don't know if they will by Friday.
I'd be surprised if they could get them out distributed that quickly. But
the problem is, as well, is you can't even order the. It's not until October before you can order the iPhone 10. So you've got to make the decision. You're going to go for the and again, although they're saying pre-order in October and available in November, that's probably if you order within the first half hour of them going on sale, because supply constraints. How popular it is, because they don't know how popular it's going to be, and we've heard about the supply constraints of the OLED screen. So if you order it the day after pre-order, it might actually be December, January before you actually get that phone. So
if you sit on the fence waiting until they actually have them to view in the Apple Store until October, you may not end up with any of the new phones until the first part of next year. Well, probably the iPhone 8 is going to be fine, because wasn't the iPhone 7 up and running pretty quickly? It was the 7 Plus that was hard to get until, I want to say, the week before Christmas last year.
Yeah. I don't know. I look at it and I can't help but wonder the price point. I mean, listen, you have to obviously charge a premium for this, but at what point am I comfortable carrying around something that size? Excuse me, not that size, that expensive. And I forgot. I wanted to bring this up before when Tonya brought up wireless charging, but I saw a number of questions and I never did see an answer about wireless charging. Does that mean the case market is gone? Are we going to just go back to bumpers, or do we not need this? Or are these things built so ruggedly and so scratch resistant that we don't have to worry about that anymore? A lot of questions.
No cases were mentioned, although I believe that Apple have actually got cases for them. But they differentiate between 7 and 8 cases because the dimensions are slightly different because of the new materials. But they did stress that the glass was very durable, the most durable glass ever in a phone, and it sort of gave me the impression that it might take a bit of a drop without shattering. But I wouldn't like to experiment with that.
Well, and you also may want a case to make the phone just easier to hold, even if you drop it and it doesn't break. I really like the case on my iPhone because it just provides some grip.
Yeah,
it's not so much that I would drop it and break it, but it would be annoying to drop it because then you'd have to pick it up.
Okay, so let me ask a question then. Every time that they picked up the phone and said on the iPhone 10, all you have to do is hold it and press that side button. I mean, I felt like every time it was going to go flying out of somebody's hand.
Yeah, the pressing the like in my household, this is a gesture, which means like ask Siri, or it's what you do if you want someone else to ask Siri and your phone isn't handy. So it's going to be kind of weird to have the ask Siri gesture be the side switch they called it. I'm not even clear where that is on the iPhone 10. I mean, some side, but which side? Haven't looked yet.
But now that's interesting. I guess I do summon Siri with just one finger, because my initial reaction was, hey, that's great, because now I'll just be able to hold my phone normally and slide my finger up a little bit and squeeze to summon Siri, as opposed to having to do a little bit of finger gymnastics to get there, or use the second hand.
I think it'll be more of the gesture that we use now to like change the volume or something. Yeah. But I have small hands, so someone with big hands might approach it differently. So
how about Face ID? I mean, that's kind of the big one here for the iPhone 10. And it's certainly, unfortunately, there was a little bit of stumble when Craig was trying to demo it. But after that, it seemed to go smoothly and flawlessly. And I'm curious to see what you all think about that. I know that I've become very comfortable at times with my hand goes in my pocket, my finger finds the button, and by the time I'm ready to use my phone, it's unlocked and ready to go.
Yep.
Then on the other hand, I've got to look at my phone to see whatever it is I wanted to do, most likely. So not too many times I've unlocked it and have it doing something before it gets to my face, if that makes sense. So. Yeah. I know, Don, you're shaking your head. What?
Yeah, no, I had exactly the same thoughts, because, I tend to open the phone before it gets to my face. As you pull it out your pocket, your hand just naturally goes to the Touch ID button, and it's open normally before you actually, get to look at it. And occasionally, if the phone's on the desk, it's just easy just to reach down and authenticate with a finger. Now when it's on the desk, I'm presuming I'm going to have to pick it up and hold it in front of my face to authenticate it. my thoughts were, will they bring this technology to the iPad? Because that really would be inconvenient, because I don't always lift an iPad up to my face, but that's for the future. So, I think I would prefer to have Touch ID on the iPad, because that's more of a desk device. But I don't know. I think the proof's in the pudding. We're going to have to use it and see how it. But it's a good point that you make. Normally, if you're going to use your phone, you end up looking at it anyway. So it. And from the looks of the demo, it does look fairly instantaneous. Basically, they brought it up to the face and swiped, and it was open. So there mightn't be a noticeable difference in using that sort of technique. But again, I think it's until we actually use it, we're not really going to know how quick or if it's going to be more efficient than using Touch ID.
Yeah, one use case that I'm kind of questioning about it. I have a car mount for my phone, and I have CarPlay in the car. And so, when I get in the car, in my car, you have to plug it in. But then you obviously open it and go. But occasionally it will go to sleep. So what's going to be the CarPlay implication here? Am I going to have to either absolutely angle the phone toward me so it can see me and know that it's me? Or is it not going to go to into lock if it's recognized or it's in CarPlay mode? I mean, there's just a lot of different use cases here that we're going to have to figure out how this works.
It's going to have to integrate in the car with the new Do Not Disturb While Driving feature also. So that's the feature where when the iPhone detects that it's in a car, it locks everything but the home screen. It sticks a notification on the home screen saying, "Hey, you're driving. Haha, too bad the phone won't work, but push this button if you want to do something." And so that's going to have to all get tied in to that question you're asking.
Yeah, and
I'm sure there'll be a screen somewhere in settings where you can configure that.
Well, I'd like to think so, because while I love CarPlay and I use it for the car, a lot of times I will use Waze as my driving app. And because that can't be controlled from the CarPlay screen in the car, it has to be controlled by the iPhone in the mount. So I don't want my iPhone locking down, but I also don't want to be having to lean over and say, it's me, wake up. So
yeah, that won't work.
Yeah. Ken, you're awfully quiet. You have thoughts on Face ID?
I'm old-fashioned. I like Touch ID, which is not really old-fashioned, but it's weird how odd I feel about just looking at my phone and having it activate. The thing that I'm most excited about, and I know this is stupid, but I'm a general consumer guy, so I think a lot of people will be excited about it, is the way you can animate the emoji. What are they called? Animoji or something like that?
Animoji. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if that's the kind of thing, if there's a place in the SDK where people can start doing that, for themselves, so you can make puppets, like do the spitting image puppets or something like that from back in the day, or make myself, I don't know, a transformer or something. Because that one robot's cute, but it's just the one robot. I need to be all the robots, Chuck. I don't know. There's something about, I was uncomfortable with Touch ID as well, so I might get used to it rather quickly. But I honestly found myself wondering, except of course I won't get used to it quickly because I'm not planning on getting an iPhone 10, so it'll be a while before it becomes second nature for me. What I started wondering was, okay, does this end up in the next, whatever iterative update? Is this going to be in the iPhone 8S or in the iPhone 9? And the other thing I actually wondered, we've heard all year, even if we tried to avoid the rumors, we've heard all year that Apple wanted to put Touch ID under the screen without a button. They wanted a virtual Touch ID button. Is that coming out with iPhone 10.2 or 10.1 or whatever that's going to be called? Oh, and we're going to go back to calling our phones like Jaguar and Panther. And sorry, that's a whole different thing. It's an interesting place to be right now, and I look forward to hearing how people like it and how people use it. It's not enough of a thing to make me want to do it, because unlocking your phone is just like getting you into your phone. And if I've got other ways to unlock my phone, then, it's not worth the extra $200 or $300 to be able to do that with my face. Although I do like that I get to say all year long, unlock your phone with your face, because that was fun to say on my show.
But am I right about this? The Animoji thing is only going to function on the 10, at least for now.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
yeah.
it has to use what are they calling it? The camera on the 10. There's a fancy name for it. It has a name.
Yeah.
It's got 2 capital letters in it. Someone here might remember what Apple called it, but you have to have that camera because it's scanning like 50 facial muscles at once and bringing all that data into the neural net, blah, 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 and then animating it onto the emoji. So that's serious. That's serious. That's serious graphical power.
It was the True Depth Camera System, is what it's called. And
that's a vocabulary word for all of us for today.
And yeah, you're right, Chuck. But again, I'm not going to spend $300 to animate my emoji.
Okay.
I mean, yes, I'm excited about that. I look forward to having that in a phone that I have someday. But I don't think I'm going to have that phone by the end of the year.
It's really strange, though, isn't it? Because they've spent millions, if not billions, on research to get this face tracking technology to the level that it is now. And, everyone explodes when we see these little emoji characters. And you think, all that technology, all that research and everything it's going to be used for much, much better things. But the key selling point that people are hooked on, and it's the same in my family. People are like, "Wow, I want that," because it's very cool. But and I think Apple has a knack of doing this, of taking very advanced technology and making it fun and very sort of enjoyable for people to actually want to use the advanced technology in these very, very fun and creative ways. They're very clever at doing that.
Didn't Craig actually said that in the thing? He's like, and if you're ever wondering what the height of technology will be used for, and then he began animating the poo emoji with his face.
Yeah.
I mean, but
the chicken was the
best. The chicken was pretty good. That was the best. You're right. That was the best look. I kind of wish the unicorn doesn't work head on because it's a unicorn. You really need the profile for that. Mm-hmm. But again, maybe that'll be an iPhone Jaguar.
Well, but there are going to be so many of those things. Developers are going to go crazy, and because they I don't know how difficult they are to create, but they're going to make money with those, boy.
Is that something that developers have access to right now, though, or is that going to be WWDC 2018?
Don't know.
Well, one of the points Apple made about the iPhone 10 is that this is their future-looking phone. It's meant to kind of put a line in the sand or, a stake in the ground about where they feel that things are going with smartphones. So I think that you're going to pay a premium to get to play with these new features now. And it sounds like, it's probably a lot of money to pay for facial recognition, which is a feature you don't really need if Touch ID works for you, which it does for most people. Although one of my friends who plays the guitar reports that it doesn't work for him at all because his fingerprint has been, strummed off. But for most people, it sounds like it's more, okay, this is something to think about for the future. Start getting used to the idea of Face ID because in 2 or 3 years, when you replace your phone, that's probably going to be what you're going to get. It kind of sounds like Apple saying this is the direction we're moving in. We're moving, in the direction of the OLED screen where we're really getting into this higher definition video, and your video is going to be gorgeous on your smartphone, and we're moving in this direction. So it is what it is, but Apple's really showing us, this is what we're playing with and experimenting with, and if you want to pay the premium, you can play with us too right now. And if you don't, we've got these new iPhone 8 models. I'm one of these people who just I think Face ID just sounds so cool. I'm not saying I would pay $200 or $300 extra for it exactly, except that it is also my job to tell people about the new features. So that could be a good excuse. But I just think it sounds so cool. It scans your face. It picks up 30,000 distinct points on your face and feeds that into an Apple-designed neural network chip thing, which uses, machine learning to figure out that's your face. That's really cool. But I'm also someone who had to get the touch bar because, I really wanted the Touch ID on the touch bar of my MacBook Pro, but I just wanted something new on my computer, something different to try. So I think for people who kind of have that unbridled optimism about new features, that we will enjoy these new things, even if there's really no practical need for them immediately.
I thought one of the high point of the demos was Craig showing off the Snapchat masks. I mean, those were, you talk about well done. You know, I'm with you on the Animoji, Ken, but you know, the first one he put up, it's like, okay, that use of AR and all this stuff. I mean, that really looked like he was wearing the mask.
I thought it was kind of creepy, actually.
Well, it may have been creepy, but it was a very well done creepy.
It was impressive, but
Yeah.
I don't think I would do that on the phone with anyone I FaceTime with, because I think it would flip them out.
Yeah, which is kind of the point.
I have to say, one thing that I found slightly disappointing and was quite surprised at was with the iPhone 10 in that it didn't include any additional sensors for augmented reality. Now, you can blame Robert Scoble if you want, because he's been touting this for the past 12 months, that, you know, the next iPhone would be a huge leap in AR. And the only thing that they made reference to AR is that they calibrated the cameras to be more compatible with AR. And I'm not really sure what that meant, but many people were expecting that we've got this face tracking system on the front of the phone, but there would also be some 3D sensors on the rear of the phone that would be able to map the environment around for more complex 3D mapping for augmented reality. And that didn't come to fruition, which I was quite surprised at, really, because, you know, they've bought lots of 3D tracking technology companies, which they obviously have used for the face tracking, but they've not gone the next step and sort of looked at external tracking devices for the phone, which I just thought it was just a surprise.
I got to say, though, today was the first day that I firmly believe that Apple is going to do some sort of AR glasses or something at some point. And so I don't think they want to make AR something that's only going to be for the people who are willing to spend $1,000 or more. I think having the same AR experience across the line of the phones that they have available is going to be a big thing, because I think people are going to get really excited about AR, and I think they're going to get frustrated having to walk around doing this when they do that. I honestly had a fevered moment of wondering if what they were going to do for the One More Thing was going to be some sort of goggle something, because as excited as I am about AR and what's coming in iOS 11, and I'm very excited about that, when I was watching that guy walk around the table, I was like, your arms get tired. You're not paying attention to where you're going. I just need that strapped to my face. Yeah. I need that like right here all the time, so that I can use my hands to do something else as well. Like maybe reach out then and move the parts, you know, that I'm playing with there. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. I was really surprised by the lack of differentiation with the 10, except for the OLED screen and the face tracking, which I know is not a small thing. But I get not making AR something that you can only play at for this level, because if you ask Tim Cook how the weather is, he'll say, well, you should see how the weather looks through my AR app on my next iPhone. I mean, he's so excited about that. You can't make that something that's difficult for anybody to get into at this point, because that is, even though I don't think any of us have a clear idea of where they're going with that yet, that's where they're going in ways that we can't see yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody has an idea of exactly where the whole AR thing is going. There are a lot of fantasies and a lot of speculation, but and the games. I mean, you know, we saw a very interesting AR demo back at WWDC, but you know, the games are only going to go so far, and that's all. With all due respect to the gamers out there, you know, there have to be other things for this to become a mainstream thing. You can't just use it to blow things up or soar through the sky or go get Pokemon. You know, it's there's got to be more. So we just have to figure out what it is.
Why does there have to be more?
Well, unless it's,
I'm sorry, not to be. I mean, I'm not sure why there has to be more. I mean, the most popular app you're right. Eventually, if it's going to be a real thing that people work with, but what was the first game? It was like the first big game. I mean, there was Maze Runner, but then there was also, I have always jokingly called it Super Monkey Fun Ball, and I can't remember what it was actually called now. But it got me to spend $10, and it got me to go into the App Store, and it got me really excited about it. I mean, games are a great way to get people into the idea of what AR is going to be, I think. And
yeah, I'm sorry.
Did you see the? No, it's okay. Did you see the crazy video online this week where somebody had laid audio around the room, basically, and then they were able to walk backwards and forwards through that audio and play it backwards and forwards, and it was ridiculous. I mean, there's absolutely no reason for it. There's no call for it, but it really gave you a clear idea of how unclear our ideas of what AR can be. I mean, so then theoretically you could actually just lay out a waveform and reach into the middle of it and take part out. Or you should be able to just, that part where you overmodulated, just be able to tap that top part down a little bit and have that not be so bad anymore. I mean, every goofy thing that somebody comes out with for AR sort of opens at least part of my brain to all these other things I didn't even think about before. Audio does not need to exist in a 3D space, but as soon as you say audio can exist in a 3D space, I'm thinking about all the ways that audio can change and be different in a 3D space, and that's because I'm an audio guy. It's going to be the same for video. It's going to be the same for, anything you can think of. And a lot of that's probably going to come from games. When that guy said today, so the machine that we're listening to is now behind a boulder, and so you can hear that the sound is different just dynamically. Just that by itself, it seems to me the implications for that. Somebody somewhere working on something that's actually a serious working thing is going to see that and think, I need that for, my business or for that theoretical thing I've been working on or for whatever. And it comes from, we want to make the best robot blowing stuff up game anybody's ever made to this point.
Games is always where it starts. I guess where I was going with that, Ken, is that, to have it become a mainstream adopted thing, people are going to have to understand how it can be used. But I've made this point so many times that we are in such infancy in this, and everybody wants it. Okay, gee, we're all disappointed that the new iPhone didn't bring AR to us right now. Well, I don't think anybody will disagree. AR is hard. And, it's to figure out what the average consumer is going to be willing to do with it and what they're going to be willing to put up with to use it. Are they going to be willing to walk around like this and, looking at your screen? Or to your point, Ken, do you put a pair of goggles on or a pair of glasses? All those things are going to affect it. So it's coming. It's just not here yet. Mm-hmm. Guys, we're pretty much out of time. We could go on and on. And I want to thank you for all the time, but I also want to make sure I let folks know where they can find you when you're not here, sharing all your wisdom and some of your questions. Tonya, how about if we start with you?
Well, I'm findable at tidbits.com. And also, I'm very Googleable. You can look me up on Facebook or Twitter. Type in my name. I come right up.
Great. And don't forget, vote for Tonya to get the iPhone 10. You're welcome, Adam. Ken, how about you?
Probably the best place is macOS Ken, and that's macosken.com. It's macOS Ken on Twitter. It's macOS Ken on Instagram, which it got a little bit active this summer and is kind of tamped down again. But I'm macOS Ken all those places. So there you go. That's me.
Wait, don't leave out the other one.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Is that the one you mean, Chuck?
Yeah, that's the one, because you brought up the Star Trek convention. It only makes sense to bring it up.
Yes. So, yes, that's a show. Okay, so macOS Ken is a daily Apple News show for people who don't know. And then Mission Log, we're going through and watching every episode of Star Trek, taking it apart from messages, morals, and meanings and seeing if the whole thing stands the test of time. And so we're at season 7 of Next Gen right now. So hurry up, because you've only got 11 or 12 more years of that show. And then that's actually the flagship show of the Roddenberry Podcast Network. So there are a bunch of other stuff that we'd love for you to check out there. And the best place for all of that is podcast.roddenberry.com. What I really want to tell you about, though, is Amway.
Well, before you get to Amway, let's talk about the checklist, too. Come on, I've got to pull it all out of you.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah, there's so many shows. Okay, last one. So the checklist is actually a show that I am producing with the guys from Secure Mac. Nicholas Raba and Nicholas Todchek are a couple of really stand-up guys who are really smart about information technology and security threats and things like that. And so every week we go through and we tackle a topic. We've actually changed it a little bit over the past few weeks. Because I've basically sort of been the guy who gets them to the next thing that they want to talk about. And then one day I was like, okay, so I don't understand this one thing. And we ended up talking amongst ourselves for like 20 minutes and ended up being, wow, I wish we had been recording. Mm-hmm. So now we're kind of going through and doing there are these things that we all know, but we don't necessarily know why we know them. And so I'm basically trying to get them to explain. Like, I know that not having proper security around my smart light bulb can turn to my light bulb being part of a dedicated denial of service attack. I know that from all the news stories that I've seen, but I have no idea how that works because my light bulb in my head is just a light bulb. And the episode that we did last week, it talked about, why what I know is why that's right. Why it is correct. Yes, this thing can be used dangerously, but I want to know why. I want to know how that ends up being the case. And so we're going through and we're finding as many questions as we can that are sort of along those lines. We've got one coming up. I understand that HTTPS is more secure than HTTP. I know that because everybody tells me that, but I don't know what the workings of that are. And so we're going through and doing that too. So the show's actually going through a little bit of a change. I think it's not just telling us what we should do. It's going a bit more into why the things that are true are true. So that one is checklist at that's our email address. It's securemac.com/checklist. And of course, all this stuff you can find in iTunes as well. So there you go. I can't do no more. No, I can't.
Now we get Amway.
Now you get Amway. The big pitch is coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Ken, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Chuck.
Don, as always, you're the guy that pretty much started so much of this with the podcasting tutorial, the screencasting tutorials that you do, and it continues to roll right on, get bigger and better all the time.
Yeah, we've been going a while now, so if anyone hasn't visited the site, come across to screencastonline.com. Obviously, there'll be lots of iOS 11 and High Sierra tutorials over the coming weeks. They're all in the pipeline, feverishly finishing those off. It's a membership site, but there's a free trial. You can come along and try for free for 10 days and download whatever you want. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm Don McAllister, but screencastonline.com is the best place to go to.
Great. And I want to make sure to highlight that 10-day free trial. That is a new free trial period. That's a bit longer than the
and we've
last.
taken away the requirement for the credit card, so you can just do it. There's no obligation to stay. Just do a 10-day free trial and away you go.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it as always.
Good. Always good fun.
Thanks for staying up.
That's all right.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the MacJury on MacVoices. I hope we've given you a little something to think about as we discussed all of the announcements. Please let me know what you think. What is going to be in your shopping cart come, Thursday night, Friday morning as we record this. Or if you're going to wait and order the iPhone 10 later. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com, bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.